Welcome, everyone, and great to have everybody on this Sunday evening. We are sponsored by Shalom Fogel, Le'iloi Nishmas Rav Yaakov Zeb ben Rav Yudah Aryeh, Maris Rivka Bas Rav Yaakov Yosef, Maris Tzivya Miriam Bas Rav God, Rav Yosef ben Sim ben Rav Yaakov Zeb, by Baruch Ian, Le'iloi Nishmas Yaakov Chaim ben Abba Esther Bas Gittel Avram, Ben Shmuel HaKoyen, by Yaakov Yumansky, Akar Satov to the Rav and the Zoom family, Nachas from his children and grandchildren, by A.B. Spry from Nachas from his whole family, Ed Saleh from London, and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual subscriber. We learned for our Bava Basra Daf, Shimon Yehuda ben Gittel, he should have a refuah shalema b'seich shachel Yisrael. We have a triple crown this evening, as we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis, the Daf, and a chok, a delicious chok, the fourth day of Tazria. We are holding now at Omar Mar. We want to thank Michal Avram for being back up and running in the Agudas Yisrael of Fairways. And I see, to my great delight, that we also have Avram Shenkman joining us in the back. Avram, you don't know how happy it makes me that you're joining us. And Michal Avram and Rich Leonard and Berish Gesserman, Dr. Guy, Menachem Umansky, Saba, Nachman Chapler, Irving Fishbaum, Yitzi Muller, Baruch Ian, Marshall Castle, looking chipper, Aaron Swade, Mel Zachter, Chaim Kramer, Shelley Zeitlin. Who's that behind the Gemara? Oh, that's Shalom Fogel, hiding behind his Gemara. You look very comfortable there. Yisrael Fisher in Tannersville, Ilya Shutman, Abe Arbach. And we welcome in David Helfgott on Kol HaLoshen. Starting 5 lines from the bottom of Daf Yud Aleph and Beis, Amar Mar. Whenever the Gemara says Amar Mar, it's similar to a gufa, meaning that it's reviewing an aforementioned statement. So Amar Mar ho Yisosim, we said that if, remember we had the case, Eddie's not here, but we had the case where Eddie opened up to an alleyway in his left. He wanted to open a door into the alleyway to the right. So we said that normally he can't do that because he cannot add to the traffic of that alleyway. However, if he had a doorway once there and it was closed, if he wants to reopen it, then since he was once a member of that alleyway, the alley to the right cannot stop him. And here Rava says, even though he closed the door, but he didn't remove the door frame. So there was a sealed area, but you still saw the door frame there in the wall. But once they removed the door frame, he lost his rights in that alleyway, and they could stop him from what is in effect making a completely new opening. Amalei Abayel Rava Tanya the Messiah. We have the same law that we and I just see that Yitz Fuchs has just joined us because his Wi-Fi is down. So good to have you, Yitz. It's wonderful how you come wherever you are.
I want to pay the bill. I'll turn it back on.
Marshall says if you have need help, then you could tell him and he'll pay the bill, no problem. That's what you said, Marshall, right? Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara, I have selective hearing. Tanya Messiah. Bayis Sosim Yesh Loi Daled Amas. If there was a house that has a door that was closed, he still gets 4 amas opposite that door that was previously there. But paratz it's psima, but if they remove the frames from it, then ein Loi Daled Amas. He doesn't get 4 amas. As we welcome in Avram Sheps. Well, here comes Rabbi Kranz. Says the Gemara, now here is a halacha, it's a gruesome halacha. If somebody died in a house and they sealed the door of the house, but they didn't take away the door frame, so the tumah doesn't spread outside of that house to 4 amas around it, because it's a closed house. But if they remove the door frame, then that becomes a grave, a mausoleum. And then it will be metame daled amas around. So we skip the circular brackets, as we always do. Ba yisasam eina metame kol savivav. If there is a grave in a house, and even though the door was sealed, that's just a closed house, and it's not metame daled amas around the house. But paratz es ptimav, if they remove the frame to the door, then that becomes a tomb. Then metame kol savivav. Then it's metame all around it. Okay, just getting underway as we welcome in Rabbi Kranz, Mo Kushner's. Delightful to have you both, as we are holding by Amar Rabba Babarchana, which is 6 lines from the top of Daf Yud Beis Amar Aleph. Look how much I'm drinking over here. It's interesting that at 12 o'clock I played pickleball in the heavy sun, and I've been drinking water ever since. It's really.
Go back to bourbon, it's better for you.
Says the Gemara, Amar Rabba Babachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba Babachana said in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, did you just say, Marshall, that you feel like a baboon? No, that's not what you said.
Hey, someone donate the Rav a pair of hearing aids, please.
Says the Gemara. Says the Gemara. Amar Rabba Babachana, Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Mivoos hamefuloshes le'ir acheres. Now, this is an interesting case. You have an alleyway that leads into another suburb, and people use your alley in order to get a shortcut to come into your hamlet. Ubikshu b'nei ha'ir l'seisman. And the townspeople wanted to shut that entry point. B'nei oisa ir ma'akvin aleim. The people of the other hamlet, the other suburb, could stop them to do this. Now, of course they could stop it if there was no other entry point. Even if there was another entry point, so this was just a shortcut. Nami ma'akfe, because there's a rule of Rabbi Yehuda. This rule we've had before, and this is like one of the ironclad rules. Mishum Rabbi Yehuda Amarav, because of Rabbi Yehuda in the name of Rav, the Amar Meitzer Sher Ziku Rabim, a path that was already used by the public, also the calculate. You cannot remove it. Now, another halacha about a mavi, as we keep on getting richer and richer every minute, as we welcome in Naftali Jablin, who's just joined us, and Ilya Shutman, says the Gemara, another halacha of an alleyway, Amar Rav Anan, Amar Shmuel, Mavayis HaMefuloshin L'Rishus HaRabim. If the alley opens up to Main Street, to 13th Avenue, to Central Avenue, Ubikshu b'nei Mavayis Lahamid Lahem Dolsos, and they want to put up doors, so that, the Rishus HaRabim doesn't bulge into their alleyway. B'nei Rishus HaRabim ma'akvin aleim. The townspeople, the public could stop them, because they've already got used to using this as an extension of the Rishus HaRabim. Now, the Gemara thought, Savar mina hani mili b'daled amas. That's the outer 4 amas of the alleyway. Because in Tumah there's a halacha. We know that when there's a suffix by Tumah, a suffix Tumah b'Rishus HaRabim is tar. That's a special halacha. So I might think it's only that they can't put up a door by the outer 4 amas of the alleyway. Could Reb Zeir Amar of Nachman? Reb Zeir Amar of Nachman, Dalad amas hasmuch l'Rishus Harabim, the 4 amas, the last 4 amas of the alleyway near the public thoroughfare is Rishus Harabim Damian. But if you want to make a door after the first 4 amas, you're allowed to. However, v'loyi, because Hasam Linyan Tumah, it's only Safek Tumah is tar in the last 4 amas. Aval Hacha, but here, when traffic gets very dense in the Rishus Harabim, they spill over deep into the alley. Sometimes it's very pressed in the Rishus Harabim, and they spill in, and then again, that's a major Sheil Zika Barabim. It's something that the Rabbim already got used to using, and you can't take it away from them. Okay, just getting underway over here on a delicious evening. I want to welcome everybody, and it's great to have you all. A special thanks to Michal Avram for setting up. Michal Avram, I'm greatly in your debt. I hope your roof has a refuah shalema. Says the Gemara, if I shared a field with Shelley cannot force the division of the field unless there's 9 kavan for him and 9 kavan for me. Then, since it is independently a field, he could force a division. Now, the other Mandiyam in the Mishnah says that it's enough 9 half kav, which 9 half kav is 4.5 kavan. V'loy pligi, and they're not arguing. Marki aser. One is talking about a locality where the soil is very fertile, and 4.5 is enough. And one is talking about where the soil is not so fertile. But Bavel Mai, what about in Bavel? Bavel was very swampy, right? All the dead of the Mabel sunk down there, so all the water goes down to Bavel, and therefore it was very marshy. So how much does there have to be that Shelley could demand that we divide? So the Gemara says, enough to give a worker 1 day's plowing. Now, we have to understand the nature. Not everybody is, into agriculture like Marshall. So you have to know that they plowed first after they harvested to soften the ground. Then they also plowed during the planting season. Now, of course, the plowing during the planting season was easier because they plowed it once already after the harvest. So the Gemara says, my beiredu yuma, what's enough to plow for 1 day? I yuma zara, if it's enough to hire a worker to plow before the planting, then trey yuma karva lo have. It won't be enough to hire a worker for 2 days during the plowing season after the harvest. And yuma karva, and if it's 1 day for the plowing season, then yuma desire lo have. Then it won't be enough to hire a worker for the planting season, because then it's going to be easier. It won't be a day's work. So the Gemara solves it in one of 2 ways. Yuma de karva. It's talking about a day of the plowing season. If it's a day of the plowing season, then that's less than a day by the planting season. It's talking about a place, the Karavatani, where they plow and replow before the planting, and therefore that will also take a day. V'iba Yisema Yuma de Zara, a day of plowing for the planting season. If it's a day of plowing for the planting season, that's not enough for 2 days for the after the harvest. Says the Gemara, Bahadure. It's talking about mountainous land, which is hard. That will be 2 days during the plowing season. And we welcome in Stephen Holtzman, and we welcome in Daniel Rosenberg. It's great to have you both. As we're just getting underway here, but moving at a very good clip, I might say, if I might say so myself. As we could wish everybody now a very good Chodesh, as we've fortified ourselves with 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. Now says the Gemara, Davla, if there's an irrigation hole, a watering hole, and Shelley wants to split it with me. Amar Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman says, as long as Bei Dola Yuma, as long as the part that I'm left with is enough for me to give work to gardener, to water for 1 day, then we could split it. Pardesa, what about a vineyard? Now, even though a pardes a lot of times is a pardes remainim, like we had, but over here when it says pardesa, it means a vineyard. We know that from the context of the Gemara. So, Amar Avud Shmuel Ba'ashloishin Kav. It's an area of 3 kav for each of us. Tanya Nami Hachi. If I say to Shelley, Mana Menas Bekerem, a portion in a vineyard, Ani Meichelach, I'm selling to you. Simcha says, Lo Yifchais Megimel Kav. I can't give him less than 3 kav. Less than 3 kav is a chaticha haruya liskabi. That's a worthwhile portion. So the Gemara says over here that Rabbi Yossi says he doesn't know how Sumchas calculates this. Rabbi Yossi ein elu ela divrei nevius. This is like prophecy, as Rashi says. B'loi tam. There's no reason for that amount, but even so, he's not saying that it's not accepted because Sumchas has obviously heard it. Mapi Rabbi, it's part of the Messiah. But Bavel Mai, how much? If I say Manas Bekerem, a portion of a vineyard, how much do I have to give him? So Amar Rava Bar Kinsa, so Rava Bar Kinsa says, Tlas Atziyasa, 3 rows, each row, B'nei Teresa Gufnei, each row having 12 vines, that gives enough work, the Rafik Gavra Biyuma, it gives enough work to a person to hoe for 1 day. Now, once we said that it's Nevius, so Amar Rebbe Avdimi from Chaifa said, Miyayim Shechar Beis Hamikdash, from the day that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, Nitla Nevuah Min HaNeviim, prophecy was taken away from the prophets, V'nitna L'chacham, and given to the sages. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? That means that beforehand it wasn't by the sages? Atu Chacham Lav Naviyu, beforehand there was no Chacham that was a Navi. Hachi Kama. Before the destruction of the first temple, there were prophets that weren't Chachamim. But after the destruction of the first temple, Afal Pisha Nitla Min HaNeviim, even though it was taken from prophets, Min HaChachamim Lo Nitla. It wasn't taken from the Chachamim, as the Gemara will say that a Chacham is greater than a Navi. Amar Ameim of a Chacham Odif Min Navi, Shenemar V'Navi, and it will bring Levav Chachma, to a heart of wisdom. But we dash in the pasuk, V'Navi, a prophet has a heart of wisdom. Now, if we're praising the prophet that he has wisdom, that means that wisdom is greater. Me nitma b'mi, who is supported by who? In other words, when we say that, well, he has some smarts like this person. The smaller is compared to the bigger. So we see Chachma is bigger than Nevi'us. Amar Abaya, so now the Gemara wants to show that Chachamim have Nevuah. So the Gemara makes several failed attempts over here before it brings a good proof. Teda, the Amar Gavra Rabba Milsa, a great man says something, see it many times. You see that Swas Emes says something, and the same thing was said by Reb Kiva Eger. Amarava, so Rava says that doesn't mean that he's a Navi. Now here, Bnei Chad Mazlaninu means that they both have a similar type of intellect. Right? They both have a similar bent of mind. A great man says something, and it was said, now, it can't be that this great man has the same mind as Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva was the greatest intellect. Even Moshe Rabbeinu said you should give the Torah to him. Says Gemara, but that's still, maybe in this aspect, the sage, Rabbi Akiva Eger, had the same reasoning as Rabbi Akiva. They could have the same train of thought. He said something, and it was said in the name of Moshe from Sinai like him. Says the Gemara, well, the Dilma Kisuma Ba'aruba, maybe he stumbled on it, like, a blind man, maybe the blind man stumbled his way down the skylight, but maybe he got, so to speak, got lucky. Says Gemara Bavalav Tam Yov, he gives a reason. Since he gave a reason, it means that it's as if he had a prophecy of what was said to Malach Moshe Sinai. Now, once we're talking about prophecy, Amr Reb Yochanan, Miyayim Shecharav Beis Hamikdash Nitla Nevuah Min HaNeviim, Nevuah was taken away from the prophets, V'nitla Shaitim Uletinaikis, and it was given to people that are imbeciles and to minors. L'shaitamai, what does it mean? It was given to imbeciles, that imbeciles are granted prophetic statements. Kihad Damar Baravashi, just mute everybody over here. Okay, at least he muted it. Says the Gemara, what's the example of shaitim that have nevuah? So the Gemara says, he was in the marketplace of Mechuzah. Shamalahu shaita, he heard an imbecile, the Ka'amar Reish Mesifta de Malach, the Rosh Hashiva that's going to be the next Rosh Hashiva that's going to be appointed, B'Masa Mechasya, Tavyumi Chasim, signs his name Tavyumi. Tavyumi, by the way, is a corruption of Tov Yom, a good day, because during the lifetime of Mar Vashi, there were good days. So Mar Vashi said to himself, Man Chasim Tavyumi b'Rabbanan, who signs himself Tavyumi? Ana, I. Shmami na l'didi kaimeli shaita. It seems to be that, it's my time. So come Asa. So he went to the academy. Come Asa. He went to the academy. And Ada Asa, when he arrived, they were about to appoint Rav Acham Adifti. Ada Asa Imnu Rabbanan, they were voting to appoint Rav Acham Adifti Beresh as the Rosh Hashiva. Came in the Shami to Asa, but once they heard Mar Bavashi was coming, Shadar Zugud Rabban Legabe, they sent a pair of rabbis to him, to ask his opinion. Akve, he kept the pair. Hadar Shadar Zugud Rabban, they sent another pair, Achrina, Akve Gabe, and he waited ad the Malubei Asar until he got a minion. Came in the Malubei Asar, once he had a minion, Pasachu Vitana Vidarish, he gave a shir klali, a lecture, And the reason why he waited, Kevin Amal Bayasar, Pasachu, Vitan of a Darish, Lefi She'ein Paislim Bekala, Pachas Ma'asar. So what happened is that he waited, he darshened, and after hearing his drasha, they appointed him as the Rosh Yeshiva and not Rav Acha Medifti. Kari Rav Acha Anafshe, Rav Acha said about himself, Kol the Marian Lai, when they reject the person, Lai b'mehera Mativan Lai, he won't get Hatzlacha very quickly. And Kol Mativan Lai, and if they do good to a person, Lai b'mehera Marian Lai. So I missed my opportunity. Okay? But the reason why Mar Bar Vashi knew this is because of what he heard from the Shaita.
It seems also that he has to do something. In other words, for the Nevuah to be clear.
Of course, a person gets a simon and then he has to make a shtadlis.
Yeah, but a lot of Nevuahs happen no matter what. It's a Nevuah, it's going to happen.
Well, as it says by Yosef, the reason why Yosef said the dreams is because he had to make the shtadlis that it should be fulfilled. So you don't say, well, you heard the dreams, you don't have to say them. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. No, you have to make a shtadlis. Says the Gemara, we also said, Tinoikis Mahi, we also said that Hashem gives nevuah to children. Says the Gemara, Kihod the Bas Rav Chisda, the daughter of Rav Chisda, Avi Yosef Bekanfei Davua. She was sitting on Rav Chisda's lap. Avi Yosef Kamei, they were sitting before him some of his favorite Talmidim, Rava and Rami Bar Chama. Allah, he said to her, Man minayu bas, who do you want to marry? Amrulay, she said Travayu, both of them. Now that's grim, both of them. And Rava said, Vano Basra, and I'll be the last one. So that's what happened. Rami Bar Chama married her, passed away, and then Rava married her. Now the Gemara tells us, this is a very important thing, when a person wants to have a conversation with his wife about something important, you want to have a clear head. You want to be decisive, or you're giving somebody advice. Before a person eats and drinks, he's not decisive. Once he eats and drinks, then he could be decisive. A hollow man is of two hearts. How do we know that hollow means, Nevuv means hollow? Because Viksiv Nevuv Luchais, the Mizbeach was hollow, made out of planks. Umetargaminon Cholul Luchan, it's hollow, made out of wood. Amravuna B'Rei Rabbi Shua, Harogel B'Yayin, if somebody is accustomed to drink wine, Afilu libay otim kibisula, even if its heart is closed, like a virgin who is closed, that means that he's not able to easily share his emotions. He doesn't feel emotional. Yayin mefakai, wine opens him up. Shenema v'siraish yenoive besulais, and wine causes the virgins to sing. It opens them up. Okay, we know that a Bechar gets a double portion. So, Amrav Huna B'Rei Rabbi Yeshua, Pshita, it's obvious that Chelik Bechar v'Chelik Pashid, when we give the firstborn a double portion, so we give him two portions, one like every other brother, and an extra portion, so we have to give them the fields next to each other. Yavinon lei achad mitzvah. You give it to them by one boundary. You don't give them one field on one side of the Yerusha and another field on another side of Yerusha. Yib Yovamai. This is an interesting thing. In the event that Reuven dies and Shimon is Miyabam, his wife, so Shimon gets an extra portion because he gets his portion and he gets Reuven's portion. Do they have to give them both portions together? Amar Abaye, he. It's the same thing. My timer, what's the reason? Because Bechar Kaya Rachmana. The Torah calls him a firstborn. Right? The pasuk says, "Va'aya Bechar asher teled yokem al shem ochiv hameis v'lo yemachar shmai b'Yisrael." Now says the Gemara, Rava says no. Amar Krava Haya Bechar, meaning Hav Yasai Ke Bechar, he gets treated like a Bechar, but ve'ein chalukasai Ke Bechar. But we don't have to give it to him both portions in the same place. So it's machlokes. Hahu de zaven ara a mitzvah debate nasha. A person bought a piece of land on the border of his father's property. Kikapolgu, when the father dies, lo yaleinu, and they're dividing it. Amalei pligu li amatzrai, give me the land that's next to my land that I bought, because it doesn't make a difference to you. Everybody gets a portion. This is easier for me that I should get the portion next to my land. Amar Rabbah, so Rabbah says, well, for sure he should get it. It doesn't make a difference to them. It makes a difference to him. That's midas sedaim. That's zenene v'zeh loy chaser. Kegain zeh kaifan al midas sedaim. So Maskevla Rabbi Yosef says they could tell him sometimes it rains on that land and it doesn't rain on the other land. So we want to have a portion of this land together with you. Imre le achi, the brothers could say, Malinum le iluya, this land that you want is worth to us like the boardwalk and park place of Kinichse de Bei Bar Moya. The Hilchas of Rabbi Yosef, the halacha is like Rabbi Yosef, they could say that they want a piece of this land if they feel that it's superior, that the rain comes more on that piece of land. Trei arasa a trei nigre. If there's two lands in the Yerusha, and each land has its own stream, so he wants the land that's closer to his property. Why shouldn't he get it? Both have a stream, so it's the same. It's zen and v'zalei. Mask Rabbi Yosef, no, zimin the high midvah, the high low midvah. Sometimes one stream will dry out and one stream won't, and therefore they want to have a piece of each property in order that they should always have land that has a watering source. And that's again a good taina. But what about if tarte achad nagra? What about if both lands have the same stream? And he wants the land that's next to him, and they want to give him the land on the other side. So Amar Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef here says, this is surely that they could force. Kegayin zeh, for sure, kaifin al midas daim. For this, they could force them to give him the land next to him, because what's the difference? Both lands use the same water source. Maskva Abaya, so Abaya says, listen to what the brothers tell him. We want to give you, this is really selfish, we want to give you the land on the other side. This way, you're going to have to hire sharecroppers for both sides. And then we'll have more security because you have more sharecroppers. Matziyama ba'ina da apish arise. We want you to have to hire sharecroppers on both sides in order that we have more security. He says, no. What do you mean? Adrabah, the din of Bar Mitzvah tells you that you should give a person the land next to him. What, because of your selfish reason that you want to give him land far away, that he should have to spend more money, and because of that you'll have greater security, that's a reason to do that to him? That's not a claim. Okay, Rabbi say, we did that pretty quickly here this evening. As we're going to move on now to a Chakal Yisrael, we will do the Mishnah Yomis after the Chak.